So I'll do a little bit of the prepared statement. So Brent Early is the Senior Vice President of Bookkeeping Services, and he's a former franchisee. I take it up
Yes.
Bookkeeping Express, okay. He has over 20 years of experience in business leadership, and he has held positions in the technology sector with Cisco, Juniper Systems, Axway, and OSIsoft? OSIsoft. In these positions, he's focused on building real value for his customers with disruptive technologies. And Lauren is a relationship manager for Bookkeeping Express, and I thought what was interesting, you're a former franchisee, and you had
Actually,
what, 7
still
locations?
a franchisee.
With Bookkeeping Express, or?
Oh, no.
Five Guys.
With Five Guys, and you have 7
I have
locations?
7 locations in North
Oh,
Carolina.
fantastic, fantastic. But her background also includes a degree from Georgetown University, and she's worked with Ernst & Young, where she obtained her CPA degree, or CPA license. And she worked for Sallie Mae in their internal audit division, and then as Director of Product Marketing, and left the corporate world in 2003 to become a franchisee for Five Guys. So we welcome you to Knoxville.
Thank you.
And you're in the prettiest city in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Time.
All right. In 30 minutes for the presentation and 15 minutes at the end?
30 minutes and 15 minutes Q&A.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you all for inviting us and letting us be part of this. Here's the agenda. We'll do some quick introductions, who we are, where we come from in our background, how our processes tie together, what we think is important from an ongoing standpoint of working with your franchisees, working with you as a franchisor, and then lastly, kind of our pricing methodology and how we break that down. I've spoken with Todd and Ben about that a few times, so I want to make sure you understand the flexibility we try to bring to the pricing. We want to be very detailed in the pricing response to the RFP. However, we think there's a lot of flexibility that we can bring that might be an alternative for you to take a look at versus the full-blown package. And we can kind of touch on other franchisees and what packages they've purchased and what tends to be typical on a restaurant versus a gym versus a home health care type of franchise. So introductions real quick. BKE, we came from a franchising background. We were originally a franchise. We started working in the franchising space, members of IFA. What's interesting is once we no longer needed the local touch, the franchising model didn't really make sense for us, but we still have franchisees out there, and that really brought us into the franchise market, and we started working with franchisors. So we're very familiar with franchising. We have franchisees, so we know the unique situation and the unique experiences franchise have. At the bottom here is our core values. We focus on one team. We try to be dynamic and always be changing, looking for the best solutions for you. Try to be trustworthy, passionate, we're client focused, stewardship and sustainability. So we want to create a relationship that's going to last a long time and bring these values to that relationship and partnership. So what's our advantage? We have over 500 years of combined bookkeeping experience. We have 25 in-house bookkeepers, and we constantly add capacity. We have 25 franchise partners and adding more every day. We're leaving here to go down and meet with US Lawns in Orlando as one of our new partners that we're bringing on. We're designed primarily with verticals in mind: restaurants, gyms, professional services, and what we call home service contractors, such as plumbers, electricians. So we verticalize. We don't throw everybody into one pot. We try to focus on the industry and the needs and requirements of that industry with our bookkeeping team and our bookkeeping processes. So restaurants aren't treated like a plumber is treated, like a gym is treated. There's unique requirements, unique terminology that we tie to that vertical. We do a virtual delivery model that brings the price down, allows us to have a fixed price. We don't charge by the hour. So your franchisees and yourselves will have a fixed price. You'll know what that is. So you won't be getting these bills that come back later where you talk to me for 2 hours at the end of the month, and here's an additional charge for those 2 hours. We try to put it in a fixed price. As franchisees start up, they have a fixed budget. They want to try to set something up to understand what their monthly expenses are going to be. It's very hard to do on an hourly rate. So we try to fit that to their model and give them a flat fee. Again, our industries. Our largest franchise in health and wellness is Anytime Fitness. We support them throughout the US and Canada. Home service contractors would be the Dwyer Group, Mr. Electric, Mr. Rooter, Mr. Plumber. I'm sorry, Mr. Electric, Mr. Rooter, AirServe, all their various brands underneath that. The professional services, real estate agents. We have Berkshire Hathaway, real estate agents, various consulting firms, a lot of different sole proprietors, individual businesses. And then restaurants, we have Five Guys, Sharky's, Auntie Anne's, Mooyah Burgers, quite a few different upstart, established quick serve restaurants as well as some upstart. But again, our goal is to make sure you're working with people that know your industry. So here's some of our different brands, and you can kind of see they're all over the board. U-Foods is a new one that we just signed up, very similar, I think, to what Big Kahuna Wings would be similar to. We manage their corporate location as well as their first store. They actually have 2 of those, so they're starting to grow out and expand there. Great Clips, hair salons, Waxing the City, Anytime Fitness is a new concept. We're working with them as they roll out. So kind of all across the board, but again, it's franchising, it's the same type of owner-operator, it's the same type of requirements. So one of the things we're very proud of is our partners, because none of the stuff that we really bring to the table is just us. It's actually a partnership with the manufacturer, and we try to find the industry leaders. So we work with QuickBooks. QuickBooks is your general ledger of choice. We work with that. The other product that we work with and had great success with is Xero. Give you 2 alternatives there for general ledger. We work with both. We work with the biggest payroll provider in the world, ADP, but also an upstart, Gusto. That's all cloud-based. We'll talk a little bit about that when we go through the product set. But the nice thing is, if you need full-featured benefits, you needed some complicated HR information taken care of, whatever that may be, we can go to ADP and work on your behalf for that. If you have just 2 employees and you're starting out and you want to keep the cost down and make it very simple, we can go with Gusto. We also will work with any one of your all's providers. So of our hundreds of clients, a lot of them will come to us and say, hey, I need you to do the bookkeeping, but my friend, my brother-in-law, my relationship with this local payroll provider is very important to me. I need you all to work with them. That's no problem. So we try to give you the alternative of we can either bring these solutions to you, best of breed, or we can work with what's already in place. Receipt Bank, I used that last night for the different invoice, for the different bills that I signed at the different restaurants. Take a picture of that. I coded it, entertainment or meal. It comes back, it flows into general ledger. That's all I had to do. Take a picture of a receipt as I'm out buying things. And again, that technology ties back to the general ledger, makes it very simple to work with. Bill.com will automate your bill payment. Your franchisee's bill payment. You can automate royalty payments. Again, technology that will bring to you, make your life a little bit easier, and train you on how to use it. And then lastly, these are our industry partners. I don't know how many of these, since you guys are just kind of getting into the franchise world, there's about 1,000 different companies, and they all seem to start with Fran on the front of them. But these are the people that we work with. Fran Data is right down the street from us. We're going to be at the IFA event, been a member of IFA since probably 2007. Vet Fran, if you don't know that, that's a great organization to get involved with. They can help you. They bring veterans that are looking for business opportunities to the franchise market and can do a lot of great things to help you and help them. And then Fran Connect. And then Fran Fund, I don't know if you're familiar with them. What they'll do is they're a proxy, if you will, for your 401ks to be rolled over to create and buy, and then to create an entity to allow you to buy a franchise. So Fran Fund, when money is brought out of a 401k and loans are created, will bring the accounts to us to kind of do their bookkeeping to keep all their information intact for the IRS as part of that. Lastly, we have some specific technologies that the franchise world needs. So we deal with a lot of multi-unit owners, we deal with a lot of large franchises, and they want different technology to roll all this data up. So Lauren, for example, is a multi-unit owner, 7 Five Guys. She's going to want to compare and contrast her multiple units. How do I look across these? How do I roll these up? Anytime Fitness, for example, wants to see there are hundreds of gyms out there, pull that data in every month and see who's doing well and who's not. And the key to that is you can figure out what's working, what's not. It might be regional. It might be, it might be tied to the climate. If it's warm, the gyms are going to be up. If it's cold, the gyms are going to be down. But how do I visualize that across all my units? How do I, if Lauren wants to run a promotion at one of her Five Guys for the month of April, how does that compare with the other Five Guys, and how does it compare historically? Was that promotion a success? So by the ability to collect all this data, bring it all together, it gives you the ability to kind of see across multiple units as well as your whole concept. So again, we bring that to the table for those scenarios where it's needed. Here's our team. And really to kind of run through this, we've got all the way starting to the left, Keith, the CEO, he came from Accenture for all the his background is outsourcing and consulting. David came from the accounting software world, so he has a different relationship with the accounting software, the background. Elizabeth came from the Air Force, so she runs our operations. She makes sure the processes and the procedures are being followed. A really handsome guy there, he just snuck in. The next is Jonathan. We've got from the Blackstone Group, he's our internal comptroller and CFO and takes care of the financials and looks across that. And then we have Lauren, who we think is probably the best resource that we have as a multi-unit owner and as a franchisee. So anytime we have any type of questions, usually it's going to fall into one of these scenarios of outsourcing technology or franchise. Let's quickly talk through the process, and I'm going to let Lauren talk to this, but one of the key things for us is we want to make this repetitive and consistent for you. And to do that, you can't assign a bookkeeper to a franchise and then a new bookkeeper comes into the next franchise. You got to break this down, much like you guys with your franchises have broken these processes down into pieces to make them repeatable and easy to do. We've done the same thing. So we've tied all the different tasks that have to be done: bank reconciliation, receipts, payroll, point of sale. All of those different pieces get broken down, and then they're also broken down by how they're handled internally. So we have teams that'll take that, but again, it's a process that passes through, so it's not a one-to-one. So if that bookkeeper happens to get hit by the pie truck, then we can simply replace that one person and fill that in, and that one task is again repeated because we've created the process. Okay. Does that make sense, the whole assembly line concept behind doing this to make it repeatable and consistent for you and the franchises?
And I think that's why I actually ended up employing Bookkeeping Express as my bookkeeper, because I was in the same spot you guys were a couple years ago. I mean, I am a CPA, I'd done all my books, but I got to the point where I just couldn't do the bookkeeping anymore, and I knew there were tools out there that I couldn't use because I didn't even know where to start looking. I didn't know all the online stuff that was coming out. This was a couple years ago. And so I called everyone. I called my regional accountant, I called my tax accountant, I called everyone, and all the prices I was getting back were just astronomical, and I know what goes into it. So when they're giving me these prices, I thought, oh, there's no way. So I landed upon Bookkeeping Express, and they gave me a very reasonable price point, and they also had this whole thing figured out. Bookkeeping, when you have just one person doing your bookkeeping, I know what that one person needs to do. They've got multiple people on the team doing the bookkeeping, and they've all figured it out, and they've made it so that it's very efficient. And because of their depth, they can do that. So anyway, that's how I came to have Bookkeeping Express service my books. That was about a year ago. The other reason I liked Bookkeeping Express, because, and you guys may have had some of these experiences, I had a bookkeeper that was coming to, when I wanted to get out of it, I actually hired someone to come to my home, show up and do my books. It worked out great for about 6 months, and then she left and gave me 2 weeks notice of, oh crap, I have to go figure this all out again. And so I ended up just doing it myself again and again. And so what I like about Bookkeeping Express is there's a team approach. So through the entire process, there's a team behind you, and we all get together to service the client. So what this means is that if my books are with a specific team at Bookkeeping Express, if anyone on that team, they're all familiar with my books. They all know what I'm about. They all know what my books look like. If one of those people were to leave, someone else just picks it right up. And so for me, that was an assurance that, great, I've got the background there, and I don't have to start all over again each time. So that was a big deal for me. And this just kind of highlights the various teams, sales and solutions. That would be someone like Brent and myself. New client setup. I'm going to go into that a little bit in the next slide, what that's all about. Account management and the vertical bookkeeping team. That's actually the team at Newport News that's familiar with my account, and they actually do all the hard work down there. They do all the books in Newport News. This is a very busy slide, but what I like about this slide is, when you decide to make this change, there's all these questions that are going through your head. How easy? How hard? What are they going to need to know? What am I going to have to line up? We try to make it as simple as possible for the client. I'm going through this right now with one of my franchisors. They're Ballet Petite. They're a ballet company, mom and daughter, 3 units. They're kind of in the same situation some of you guys are, and they're just now starting to franchise. And They needed to get their sister out of the business who was doing all the bookkeeping, and so they've hired us to do it. We step in, we understand the whole business, we try to figure out what exactly you're looking for. Everybody's different, right? Everybody's got their unique process. We try to understand the process, we document the process. We then give it to the client. They need to review, which is the client is all down here. They need to review the welcome package, make sure it's what they understood, what they were expecting. After that, if you can see, this is all our operations. This is all what happens behind the scenes. There's a kickoff call right away. We get on the phone with you. This is the team. This is the team for Newport News talking to you guys, saying, again, this is what we understand. This is what you're looking for. And all this goes through, and then it comes to the point where we're really just gathering your login information, which sometimes is the hardest part to get from our clients, because we're very careful about document management. We do not want to have your passwords. First of all, we don't want to have access to your bank accounts to do anything other than just administratively, right? So that's a new setup for some of you. You probably have accounts where you're the sole administrator. So that takes a little time. Getting access to the credit cards, if we're processing your credit cards, that's going to take a little time. So really, a lot of it is in the setup process. That's just making sure we get you set up properly and everything's in place. Once we get that, we start with your books. And then what happens here is, this is where we confirm all the action items are there, and then we start you in training. We want you to know the tools. We want you to know Bill.com, Receipt Bank. We want you to know QuickBooks Online, whatever questions. And from that point on, you're with the team. I mean, but it's not, I don't want to minimize how tough this transition is, because it is. I've been through it with clients, but we try to make it as simple as possible. And the team, I mean, you've got a person that helps you get your signups in place. She calls the bank with you if you want. I mean, we had that happen just last week, actually. They'll call the bank with you to get the setups. So we really are very involved in that process. And we want to make sure that all those questions, you have someone to ask, you've got the same person to ask as questions pop up in your head. So this is, I think, just the whole team approach, I think, is unique to us, and it just gives you so many layers of confidence that people know your business, I guess, is how I feel about it. And this final slide is, you're all different. Everybody, the Big Kahuna is different from Casual Pint, as you all know, and then we've got health and wellness in there, the pie. I mean, it's all different. And so we are, as much as we try to streamline the process, make it an assembly line, we also really care about your uniqueness. And so, as I said in the setup process, we're sitting down with you, we're reaffirming what we understand about your books, we're understanding what's unique to you, and then we try to work with you in the process. We're not making you fit into our square hole, we're making you what you are, and we document. This is just an example of one of our clients. We've documented the payroll process for them. They're all using different payroll providers, I think. So all of this is really showing you what happens in the process for this particular client. You guys might all have a different picture here. So, any questions about the process? Or I guess we're saving this to last, sorry.
All right. So we're getting close on time, so I'll try to get through some of this. So ongoing training and marketing, one of the things being in the franchising space, we know that a lot of stuff has to go into place to support you. So we're very comfortable doing the ZOR events, the annual event that you bring all your franchisees in. We attend those for all of our franchisors, and we expect to do that and be part of that. Some of our franchisors actually bring us in as part of the training part of their franchisees. So franchisees are brought in, you take them through that 1-week training. We're actually brought in as part of that, and for 30 minutes we talk about the importance of financial reporting and financial timeliness as part of that franchise success. So we bring all that together as part of the training. We also do, for the franchisees, we'll do webinars. We can do upfront training to kind of get them ready. I'll show you some examples of that. And then the big thing is communication. We've got to be in sync with what you guys want, and we have to communicate to the franchisee that same message. So that's a big thing that you'll hear a lot of times is, well, my franchisor said this, but you're telling me to do it this way. Well, the CPA wanted my chart of accounts like this. Well, the ZOR said it has to be this way. That's one of the nice things too, is we'll tie all that together for you. So it's all consistent, and you don't have that constant squabbling of back and forth of what the CPA wanted versus what the franchisor and the franchisee might want. So accounting training, we actually provide training. We think the more that we educate people on the importance of the accounting and the financials, the more value we have and the more stickiness we're going to have with the account. So Lauren and TJ here just went out to one of our new franchisors that came on Yesco. They did huge lighting signs. They did it in Vegas. They actually do the big, like you would see at Luxor, the big flashing sign. So that's their franchise model. We were out there. Lauren actually gave a presentation on how to read a balance sheet, how to read a P&L statement, all that as part of the franchisee training for that week. So we were actually out there doing that, and we continue to do that. We create customized collateral. So this is Amada Healthcare, Amada Senior Care. So we actually create this for them. They actually give this out to the franchisees. This is the actual steps that they have to go to get everything set up. A lot of stores we work with will handle the technology component. And then what we do, once that's set up, we get on the phone and we take them through the next steps. And again, this is just for Amada, but we can create these same steps, these same processes for your franchisees. And again, they got 1,001 things going on, and if they're like me, accounting is the least important. So I want to get my sales, I want to get my revenue, I want to get everything going. But by having something like this, they can get it taken care of quickly and easily and move back to the stuff that's important to them. We do educational email campaigns, so we send out emails talking about what's the difference between a 1099 employee versus a W-2. Lauren has worked with different franchisors. What is the Obamacare impact to me with my with my employees? So a lot of this stuff that's constantly popping up, we try to constantly educate the franchisees. So now I want to jump to the pricing real quick. How are we doing on time? Probably pretty close. Okay. So I want to run through this real quick because I know this is important. The accounting and tax payments, these are the various roles that we can take on. This is our baseline pricing. If you go to our website, this is what you would see. And we really have broken it down into 3 pieces. And I talked at length with Ben on this. We have an opening soon package. This is great for somebody. I've signed my franchise agreement. I'm now going to find my lease. I've got, I'm now interviewing people to manage my store. Everything's going on. No revenue's coming in. So you don't want to have a big fee to do your bookkeeping, but somebody's got to keep all that information, set up your chart of accounts, and do it. So for $99 a month, and again, this is just list pricing off our website, we'll take care of all that for you. Our price includes the software, the general ledger, QuickBooks Online, the receipt bank software, everything that you need, and now we simply help you get everything going. And then when you open, we have a package called In Business. The key to this one is it has monthly reconciliation. Great for gyms, great for small restaurants. It works very well. We bring all the data in, we reconcile the bank statements, take care of the payroll reconciliation, all of that, bring it all in for $279 a month. The last package is winning, tends to be more what our QSRs go for, because what we want to do there is we want to reconcile weekly. And the way we do that is a little bit different than a lot of people do. We take your point of sale data, and we see everything that was purchased for that week by day. Then we get your bank statements and all the deposits that were made, and we make sure those match up. A lot of people will give you, this is what came into your bank, but what if it doesn't match your point of sale data? Now keep in mind there's some complexity there. There's Visa, MasterCard has a 2-day lag, plus indoor holidays, plus there's merchant service fees that come out and all of that. So at the end of the day, what we're able to do is at one point in the week, say last week, here's all your total sales, less your merchant service fees, less coupons, less whatever that may be, and here are all your deposits, and it matches. If it doesn't match, we let you know, and then you can go back and do that research. As opposed to just saying, hey, this all came in, and you have to go back yourself and figure out the point of sale match up to that. So once the business gets to a certain size, we try to do that weekly, because if you do that at the end of the month, in the beginning of the month, you're going, wait a minute, there was a mess up on the 3rd, well, 20 days, 25 days have passed, it's very hard to go back and correct that. So we do that on a weekly environment. Okay. The last thing is, these are some additional things that we've added in here, and this is part of our RFP response. So the key thing I want to make sure, we actually factored in 20 employees, but our actual rate per employee is $29 per month, not per pay run. So if you guys are paying payroll providers, you know a lot of them do it by pay run, and it's $6 per employee. So there's a difference here in the different businesses. Some have 3 to 4 employees, some have 20, but that would be an easy way to factor the pricing. We did an average of 20 employees on the RFP, and that's where that number came from. We also can do sales tax. Sales tax is tricky because you have a number of nexuses. Is it alcohol? Is it a county tax? Is it a state tax? What other taxes? So we have one gentleman who's opened 6 restaurants in San Francisco. he's got kiosks that move around. Well, his sales tax is a whole lot different because that kiosk is here one day and then it moves to another one. So we can handle all that, and it ties to the number of nexuses that we have to touch. If you're lucky, you only have one. If you're unlucky, you might have 4 or 5, but we can factor that in for you. And that'll be franchisee by franchisee. We can also do federal income tax as part of our solution. And again, we matched it to what the requirements are within the RFP. But again, that's the type of business that you're going to have. If somebody just has a Schedule C on the personal income, it's $40 a month, very inexpensive. If you're over $250,000 in revenue and you're a C Corp, it's going to be about $150 a month. So there's quite a range in there, but we match it to the franchise. And all of that is given to the franchise and documented. It's not hourly. So everything will be documented. This is what we're going to do. This is what, how are we going to reconcile weekly. Here's the tools. Here's the training. They sign it. We sign it. And that becomes their rate. You don't get that constant, here's another hour, here's another hour, here's another hour. And they can pick up the phone and call the bookkeeper, talk to them, walk them through it. As well as in the 65 and the 75, is to have a CFO level person give your franchisees a call monthly and yearly to speak with them about the interpretation of the financial reports. So I just want to make sure we have standard packages, we have the ability to add these things, but in our markets with franchisees and franchisors, it varies by the size and how they're going to set things up. A perfect example is a guy buys a franchise, his wife's a CPA. Well, his wife's going to do the taxes, his wife's going to take care of that. Why would you want to pay us to do that? So we'll do the bookkeeping, provide the books to that person, or his brother is a CPA. So we have the ability and flexibility to do that and then move them through different packages as they grow. Does that make sense? Then what we do to kind of stimulate use of our services and expand that, we actually have a volume-based discounting. So once from 0 to 10, we use these pricing. Once we get to 11 units, we have the ability to discount off of that across the board. So that encourages franchisees to encourage others to get in. It's great for our referral process. Hey Joe, tell Bill about how great we are, because you'll get a discount and he gets a discount. And that's all I have.
Perfect. I think we did exactly 3 minutes.
Really?
Right on.
We did. Right on. We were so timely.
So, questions?
I have a question on, it showed Bill.com up there. How do you handle the payment of royalties? So royalties from the franchisee to the franchisor. Is that done through Bill.com?
What?
And if so, how do you get over the
Clearinghouse.
the clearinghouse? For a franchisee, it's not visible on the register anymore.
Right. I mean, just to address the Bill.com, I use Bill.com for my stores, and I know exactly what you're talking about with the clearinghouse situation. And it took me a little while to get used to that, because certainly I was paying enough bills that when it came out of the bank account, and you just see, you might pay 3 bills, but you just see the one amount coming on the bank account. So that kind of threw me off at first, but there's a, on the dashboard with these QuickBooks Online or Xero, there's actually a Bill.com register, where if you're at all curious about each of the deposits to your bank, you just go to the Bill.com register, and it delineates it right there. And then of course those things are all part of your GL. And posted that way. So it takes a little bit getting used to, but I actually really like it. I mean, I've had a good experience with it, and so does that answer your question, or is that how you? Okay.
In the royalty piece we talked about, it can be a little bit tricky too. Restaurants tend to do it weekly, which can create a lot more work. Gyms and some others tend to do it monthly. So that's kind of the flexibility we would have. And for example, some restaurants do 13 periods a year. Some do 4, 4, 5. Some do calendar. So we have the ability, and with our restaurants and stores, they're all over the map. So we can tie that back to is it monthly in the beginning, and then it goes weekly. How many periods per year do you have? Do you do it calendar, or do you do it 4, 4, 5? So we can tie that together. A lot of our franchisors will have a portal where all the point of sale will go. So I don't know if Digital Dining has a portal where all your franchisees' data can go into it. Then what we could actually do is we could log in, see what their sales, and let's say you royalty by week. We could go in and see what the revenue was for the week, and then we could generate that royalty request or match the royalty payment, depending on if it's mandatory or how it's set up, match to that.
Right. Yeah. all of the franchise systems, none of them want to do any type of invoicing. So they
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Five Guys closes out
Yeah.
Sunday night and then Tuesday.
And they do an ACH, and that's all changed. I was trying to think, I've been doing this so long, I can't remember, they didn't have it all figured out when they first started. But what they do right now is, yeah, weekends on Sunday, and they do a withdrawal on Tuesday from all of our bank accounts. And so it's very, it's clockwork. Initially, gosh, when they first started, I mean, we were one of the first franchisees with them, believe it or not, and I think we were invoiced for our royalties at the
Really?
very
Yeah.
beginning. So they had to figure that part out, as they grew.
We've never done that, and we won't.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the things we're proud of, as you can see, if you go back 5 years ago, you had QuickBooks Desktop, which you had a nightmare to get into. Most banks didn't integrate. You didn't have a lot of the nice tools. So just in 5 years, with everything going to the cloud and technology, it's really got, digital dining is a great platform now on an iPad. None of that stuff was around. So our goal is to keep you aware of all the great tools that are coming, and then you can take advantage of them, and it makes everybody's life a little bit easier. We're trying to pull the people out of it as far as the processing goes, so you can use the people more for customer service. Help me here, help me do this, and let the systems in the background work.
Let me ask you a question on Xero versus QuickBooks. What is your platform of choice if you have one? And what, if not, what are the rationale for going one versus another?
Yeah, I did QuickBooks Desktop until I transitioned to BKE, and at the point that I entered BKE, I had my choice between QuickBooks Online or Xero. At the time I joined BKE, it seemed that Xero was more accessible, was more interchangeable, or could what's the word I'm looking for? Could use the tools. The tools were more interchangeable with, as opposed to QuickBooks Online. It just hadn't gotten there. So I've continued to use Xero this year. Xero is a very simple, they try to make it sexy and beautiful. It's a very clean looking software. I think there's more capabilities for restaurants on the QBO side. You're looking at COGS, your percentages, things like that, your labor, your product costs. And there's some more reporting available on QBO than Xero. So either one of them, I think I mean, like I said, I'm using Xero and I'm okay with it. I just think that QuickBooks Online might have a little bit more.
And once you decide on a platform, whether it's Xero or QuickBooks Online QBO, that platform stays with everyone in that system. Is that correct?
It's kind of up to the franchisor. Anytime Fitness approves QBO or Xero.
Okay.
And so we Xero, from a non-accounting side of the house, Xero is easier to use for a person who's not an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you ensure consistency of reporting on the backside if you're not using the same system?
Usually the Zor will say, I'm a QBO shop, or I'm a Xero shop, or I'm deciding, can you help me? Then we'll match to that, because what we'll put the requirements in place. So let's say it's QBO, and one reason QBO was behind in the cloud, and now it is caught up within the last year. So there's really not a lot of difference between the two from 30,000 feet. But once the franchisor figures out what they need, a lot of times it's the tool. Like, I have a point of sale system that integrates with QBO, well, then we're going to go QBO. Or I have a scheduling package that ties into Xero, then that tends to be more of the driver than anything. And all the franchisors we work with, they have some stuff that's 20, 30 years old that they've just kept improving as the franchise model has grown for them. So that's the first thing, but we'll make sure it matches your requirements. The chart of accounts match your requirements, and there's usually some nuances that are unique to your franchise to make sure it's entered correctly. We'll match that as well.
Any questions?
Consistency in the process, action driven, how? If I'm dealing with Newport News and Knoxville, Tennessee, and we're opening up a store in Chandler, Arizona,
Right.
I want to make sure we're consistent, how's that process?
Well, to some extent you drive that, right? Because you're sitting there saying, I want my chart of accounts to look like such. And so there's a process when we set you up that we make sure that your chart of accounts is going to be what you want, right? In terms of the processing, the actual processing that happens on Newport News, they are all trained the same way. They've got, the team leads, everything's evaluated. Once they do the work for you, it's evaluated for consistency or making sure that it's quality. I guess it's a quality review. And they're all working at it the same way. So there's you don't have a rogue team over here that's going to be doing one casual pint. First of all, they're all going to be with the same team, so you've got the consistency there. But so you wouldn't have to worry about a rogue team, but they're all working at the same, they're all trained the same, they're all doing your books the same. So you're not going to have, again, unless you tell them, right, you want to do it differently. If you want something different for your location down in Sarasota or something, then you would tell them, and they would process it that way.
That's it. Maybe examples, use Anytime Fitness, we have over 100, I know over 100, I don't know the exact number. They're handled all by the same team, because when they charge the membership from the gym, it's done exactly the same. We know how the point of sale works for like selling sweatshirts and water. That's all treated the same. We know their royalty structure, and when they pay royalty, that's all treated the same. So we've got guys up in Canada, California, Florida, Northeast, everything, because that's the Anytime Fitness way, that's the way it's done. Five Guys is a little bit looser, but it's the same set of tools. Mm-hmm. So we have Five Guys all throughout the US, but they use the same point of sale, the same portal, they have the same coupon scenario, they have the secret shopper scenario, so we know all the details behind the Five Guys. So no matter where they're at and how many they have, it'll all be the same, because that team knows the Five Guys way, if you will. And that's the big thing we found. So you kind of, if you tier it up, you got a bookkeepers and teams that kind of do the industry, do the franchise concept, so any gyms and healthcare. But at the same time, we're also have a vertical that's focused on that. So as we're bringing in, we can compare and contrast how different groups do it. So we're constantly adding that capability in there. So you're going to be in the casual pint team in the food and beverage industry. So you're consistent with that versus just somebody who might not know your business or know your industry.
Let me ask you, you showed that you use Box for documentation.
Mm-hmm.
How does a franchisee get their documentation to you for, let's say, bill payment or just general, ledger entries? How does that happen?
Any way you want it.
Yes, so we tend to end up having two general groups. It tends to be people who haven't started yet. Like, hey, I just signed my franchise agreement, I'm getting ready to go. That's pretty simple because there's not a lot of documentation to get. You probably want to get a copy of the lease when it's signed. You probably want to get a copy of the franchise agreement to understand how the royalties are taken care of. There might be a loan document. So usually if they can send that to us, we'll take that. And the great thing about that opening soon, it can be piecemeal. We know that you don't have your lease signed yet, so we're not looking for that. Or if we bring somebody on who goes, look, I'm going to change bookkeepers, I've been in business for 3 years, here's all my documentation, then we'll use Box to transfer all of those as well. What ends up happening though is as we go through this and we have this customer online, all that documentation gets digitally stored and it's part of our process. The customer and you don't have to do anything, but we'll keep track of all that information digitally. So 2 years from now, if they need a receipt or if they need a copy of something, we'll have that.
And how do you monitor? You showed the graphs up there in terms of being able to monitor the individual franchisees, identify problems early. How do you work with the franchisor and the franchisee on the identification of problems or issues?
Well, so it varies by concept. I'll give you maybe another example. So the Dwyer Group, which they have what's called franchise consultants. So, and they're very large scale. So they actually have people within their concepts that does the financial reviews and the financial, so we provide them that
That's
data.
none of us.
Right. So, but we understand the importance of that role. Okay. So what we do is we try to tie that person's background. We get people that come in that have an accounting background. So they need a little bit different support than somebody who comes in with a sales background who doesn't know accounting. So if it's individually, we provide the financial reports and then we can do a review based on what their requirements are. Or some people use a system that will roll all that up to the franchisor. And then the franchisor can look across that and then we can do, sometimes we do a discussion with the franchisor or maybe the three of us get on the phone and go, hey, your margins are a little low. We kind of, well, this is a different market. We kind of tie that together. So we can do that, but it tends to be flexible based on the size and the background of the franchisee.
One of the things that we're asking for in this, in the RFP, is that at least there's a phone call, face-to-face, if you will, with that franchisee around key performance metrics,
Mhm.
KPMs, that are important to the franchisor. Is that something you do, and is that incorporated in that base bid? Because I saw there was a $75 charge for a.
Yeah, the 65 and the
CFO.
75 would be the CFO charges on top of that. But that's something, we can certainly do that. The question becomes, do we create the KPIs, or the KPIs created by the franchisor, and do we simply measure against those? Yes, go
I
ahead.
think it's a collaborative process
Okay.
based upon your experience and the experience, of course, the franchisor understands what's important, but also from your experience, especially, as you said, in your verticals.
Mhm.
You can probably bring some things to bear, at the very least, in terms of the upper and lower control limits
Right.
for those KPMs.
Yeah, we have some, so one of our larger Five Guys franchisee is now bringing on Blaze Pizza. So what we'll do is we'll work with him, we're doing his book. So now what was unique, he would compare Five Guys against Five Guys. Now he can compare Five Guys against Blaze Pizza. And you can start, by pulling all that data, that reporting that we showed you, he can bring that together and go, well, my margins are better here, weekends are better here, all that different stuff as to how to staff and cost of goods and all of that to bring together. So bringing all the collection data together gives you the foundation, then we can work through what are the key KPIs that you want to measure, either at the ZOR level or at the franchisee level.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mikey, do you have any questions from your end?
That's from Mickey.
No, just listening. And there's been a lot of discussion, so I have been taking a couple notes. I want to go back and watch the video because you're recording all this, right?
Yes. Absolutely. Any other questions?
On your packages, the different ones, you're starting in business, winning. Well, in a restaurant, I've got to have weekly.
Right.
You do.
So I don't want it, I don't want that to be the only factor that says there's no way I can do this, because really they're just getting started and so am I, but I have to be on this end
Right.
because of what we have to do, not only for the franchise, but also for the vendors that they use. I mean,
Right.
it has to be so is that something that is, that can be looked at in a different way of modeling that up, because we are a restaurant versus somebody that doesn't need it but once a month?
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, you definitely are gonna, I do it weekly, for
Yeah.
sure. They do all the reconciliation. I mean, we've caught mistakes because we do it so timely and the deposits aren't made and things like that. I've caught some thefts and things. So you would definitely be in the model that had the weekly reconciliation.
Yeah, what we would normally do is come back to you individually, as opposed to where the RFP was kind of across all of them. We would come and say, Matt, what do you see? And let's you might go, hey, I don't want this piece of it. We pull that out. Hey, I want zero and I don't want QBO, whatever. Your package will be built around those three, so you kind of have a price point, but it'll be unique to what you need. If you want day one, the day that restaurant opens, to be weekly, then that's the package that they'll get.
Well, and that's what I say. I mean, is it going to rule you out because of the price point? Because I have to have the weekly.
No,
Okay.
no.
So the price points can be adjusted based on.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I tell you what, we certainly thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come up and visit with us today, and glad you had an opportunity to go to the casual plant and to BKW. We represent some absolutely fantastic brands, and we're looking forward to aligning yourselves with a partner who can help build these brands over time and continue taking the burden. There isn't anyone at this table who likes the accounting function.
Yeah.
So
Even
I
me.
think-
You should,
Except for you all.
No, I'm
So
saying both.
by taking this burden off of us, and specifically the franchisor and the franchisees, is just, I think, a real boon to the business model of all the brands.
Yeah.
So our next steps from here will be, the franchisors will probably go back through these videos, and if they want to have you back, we'll probably engage in a series of discussions, but that will typically be by brand.
Okay.
So,
Okay, great.